Hello, friends. Welcome to our channel, where we tell the most interesting stories from the past and present. Today, we will talk about an event that became a symbol of freedom and changed the course of world history. What is the Berlin Wall, and why did its fall become a symbol of freedom? The Berlin Wall was a symbol of the Cold War, dividing the world into two camps: capitalism and socialism. History of the creation of the Berlin Wall. The division of Germany after the end of World War II. Germany was in ruins, both physically and politically. The country was divided into four zones of Oceania: Soviet, American, British, and French. The capital of Berlin was divided in much the same way, despite the fact that the view was in the Soviet zone. In 1949, two states emerged: the Federal Republic of Germany, FRG, in the west, capitalist and favorable to the United States and its allies; the German Democratic Republic, GDR, in the east, communist, under the influence of the Soviet Union. This border between East and West became the first conflict of the Cold War. By the 1950s, the difference in living standards between the FRG and the GDR had become obvious. The German economy was booming thanks to the Marshall Plan, while the East German economy suffered the problem of population migration from East Germany. One of the main reasons for the construction of the Berlin Wall was the massive population outflow from the GDR to the FRG. This trend undermined both the emergency situation and the political stability in East Germany. 1. Mass emigration. Reasons for the escapes. Economic difficulties in the GDR are low standard of living, shortage of goods, limited opportunities for career advancement, political repression, lack of freedom of speech, strict control by the Stasi, East German secret police. Attractions of the West: freedom, higher standard of living, access to technology and culture. The scale of the problem. From 1949 to 1961, about 3.5 million people, approximately 20% of the GDR population, moved to the West through Berlin's open borders. Many skilled workers, engineers, doctors, and scientists were among the migrants, which eased the risk of accidents. Life behind the Berlin Wall. After the Berlin Wall was erected in 1961, the lives of East Germans changed forever. The wall not only separated friends, but also symbolized the isolation, control, and repression that characterized the communist family regime. Separated families. People on opposite sides of the wall were unable to meet. Even phone calls between East and West were restricted. Stories of parents who never saw their children became common. Tight security measures. The wall was not just a concrete structure. It was protected by patrols, watchtowers, minefields, and alarm systems. Those who crossed the wall were arrested or killed. It is estimated that more than 140 people died trying to escape. The beginning of the end of the Berlin Wall. By the 1980s, the political and economic situation in East Germany and other Eastern Bloc countries began to roar. Domestic discontent, as well as changes in international politics, created the conditions for the fall of the Berlin Wall. 1. Economic and political crisis in the GDR. Economic difficulties. The planned economy of the GDR could not cope with global competition. Shortages of basic goods and a decline in living standards increased discontent. Political pressure. Strict censorship and repression reigned in the GDR. The secret police Stasi monitored citizens, suppressing dissent. 2. Gorbachev's policies and perestroika. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the USSR, starting reforms. Mikhail Gorbachev, who took over the Soviet Union in 1985, became a key figure in maintaining the political situation in Eastern Europe. His reforms, perestroika and glasnost, not only took hold in the USSR, but also hastened the fall of the Berlin Wall. Gorbachev understood that the Soviet economy was in decline. He began to introduce market elements into the planned threat, encouraging private enterprise, strengthening the autonomy of enterprises, fighting corruption. However, these reforms are characterized by the weakness of the system, which was also noticeable in the Eastern Bloc countries, including the GDR. 3. Abandoning the regime in Eastern European affairs. Gorbachev understood that the USSR would no longer use force to maintain communist regimes in Eastern Europe. The so-called Brezhnev Doctrine was abolished. This contributes to the activation of opposition movements in Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and the GDR. 4. Research on East Germany. GDR leader Erich Honecker resisted reforms, declaring that perestroika is not necessary. This led to conflict with the people demanding change. In 1989, mass infiltrations into the GDR in Leipzig, the so-called Monday protests, where people demanded freedom of speech, additional elections, and the right to travel abroad. Gorbachev's policies created conditions in which Soviet control over Eastern Europe weakened. Without the support of the USSR's regimes, including the East German government, he could not sustain popular discontent. This became the catalyst for the events that led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Night of November 9, 1989. The fall of the Berlin Wall this night was a historic moment that suddenly and quickly ended almost 30 years of division in Berlin. 1. The press conference that changed everything. On the evening of November 9, 1989, GDR government spokesman Gunnar Schabowski held a press conference. The meeting discussed new rules for traveling abroad. Journalists' questions caught Schabowski off guard. He announced that GDR citizens had the right to cross the border freely. When asked when this would affect the force, he answered uncertainly, "As far as I understand, immediately." The news spread quickly throughout Berlin. People began flocking to the border changes, demanding that they be opened. East Berliners came to the wall in their thousands, not believing that the border would actually be opened. The border guards had not received clear instructions. They were confused and did not know what to do. The crowd continued to grow, becoming louder and more demanding. Fearing criminals, the guards began to let people through. People from the opposite side of the wall began to cross the border, remembering and greeting each other. Locals used hammers and sledgehammers to begin to build the wall, turning it into ruins. The atmosphere was filled with joy, tears, and a sense of freedom. Consequences of the fall of the wall. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 became a symbol of the end of the Cold War and the conclusion of the socialist bloc. It had many consequences, both for Germany and the world. German reunification. 1. One of the most obvious consequences of the unification of East Germany into one country, which led to changes in political, economic, and social life. Reunification took place in 1990. 2. The collapse of socialist regimes in Eastern Europe. The fall of the foundation inspired protests and revolutions in other Eastern European countries, such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and others, which eventually led to the collapse of socialist governments in the European countries. 3. The end of the Cold War. The fall of the wall became one of the symbols of the end of the Cold War and the improvement of relations between the East and the West. It paved the way for the signing of important disarmament agreements and the establishment of new agreements on relations. 4. Economic transformation. The German Union required huge economic costs. West Germany invested heavily in the development of labor relations and the transformation of economic orientations between East and West Germany. 5. Political transformation in Europe. The fall of the Berlin Wall accelerated the process of Central and Eastern Europe's advancement into the European Union and NATO, which led to changes in the global political landscape. 6. Social change. For many East Germans, the fall of the wall opened up new opportunities, but also caused social and cultural conflicts between people who grew up in different countries. 7. Global impact. This event becomes a catalyst for a more democratic democracy in the world, as well as the growth of globalization and openness of countries. In essence, the fall of the Berlin Wall changed not only the map of Europe, but the entire world order, leading many to transform both their political and economic existence. How did the fall of the wall change the world, and what can we learn from it? Freedom and unity are mandatory values that we must protect. If you like this material, do not forget to subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new interesting facts and stories. Your subscriptions and likes help the channel grow and create more content for you.